Greetings, Saracen Sands. I've been the librarian here at St Bride since April 2019. My journey to joining the SBF family began when, in my previous role, I was running a national lottery project on the radical Victorian pamphleteers who used their publications to champion such political and social causes as freedom of the press, women's rights, and universal suffrage. Part of this project involved creating a well-designed and highly visual learning pack to use with schools. Discussing the imagery we wanted, we decided it was important to include photographs of the beautiful Victorian presses that our 19th century champions of freedom would have used to disseminate their radical ideas. This led us naturally enough to St Bride Foundation, where late one afternoon we kindly were given access to photograph the menagerie of treasured presses with whom I am now on first-name terms. Crossing the threshold of the Victorian edifice for the first time, lugging photographic equipment through its labyrinthine corridors as we descended into the scented depths of the print workshop, was thrilling. Entering the studio, ink hanging heavy in the air, the noirish silhouettes of the presses looking on, and the legendary workshop gang heading out the door to an urgent business conclave in the Bell Tavern, I was smitten. My background in the world of libraries had yet to bring me into contact with the presses and foundry equipment that was so instrumental in creating the need for librarians and archivists such as myself. And as soon as I was in their midst, I knew I did not want to leave. I wanted to become a part of this Victorian jungle of metal, print and type. Serendipitously, a few months later, as I was scrolling through one of my library mailing lists, the Pantone warm red of the SBF logo caught my eye, revealing that the foundation was ready to employ a librarian. So with the deadline closing in on me like a fast-approaching train and a slightly random holiday in Spain tied to the tracks, I sit manzanilla with my former boss on the balcony of her villa whilst doing my best to compose a CV for my dream job. And it worked. The panel of 9 decided they liked me, and I loved the fact that they, the staff and trustees, were adamant that the library and collections should be at the heart of everything our foundation does. So the building and the print workshop drew me in, and next I was beyond inspired by the people who brought the building and the collections it holds alive. In its 125 years, St Bride Library has had only 6 librarians. James Mosley was a custodian for over 40 years, as was Turner Berry, which tells you what a tantalising and inspiring place it is. Either that or the trustees kept them all locked up in room 19 without remand. Sadly, for a number of years leading up to my appointment, there'd been no librarian, but despite the financial constraints, the collections and the workshop had through that period been looked after and loved by a collective of volunteers. So where our collections are the heart of St Bride, our volunteers are its soul. Bob Richardson is the fount of knowledge regarding print history and is beloved of all who've heard him wax lyrical about our collections. Mick Clayton and the workshop gang have brought their knowledge, skills and some pretty fruity anecdotes from the golden age of Fleet Street to bear in our workshop, where they pass the baton of print to the next generation of avid letterpressers. Retired librarians have donated their time and skills to manage and catalogue the collections, and then we have the amazing conservation volunteers who care for our collections. And not forgetting Becky Chilcott, who curates our fantastic talks programme. I must also give a shout out to Jill Clayton, who looks after our bookshop, organises our annual Waysgeese, keeps the workshop crew in order, which is no mean feat, and ensures we are always supplied with top-notch cake. It's impossible not to be inspired by St Bride Library when it's peopled by such an amazing community. Our typographic Praetorian Guard, a tribe of people who through thick and thin have looked after, loved and shared our collections. And so now we get to the beating heart of St Bride, the compendium of treasures that draws all of us in. The collections are astounding and special, beautiful and curious, myriad, occasionally indecipherable but always inspiring. They cover the breadth of print and design, typography and papermaking, from Egyptian papyrus through to the information age. And the great majority of our collections are housed in the Orwellian-sounding room 19 at the top of our building. Not many people are allowed beyond its hallowed doors, but those that make it through a series of ever more devious riddles and Herculean labours are welcomed into the typographic equivalent of Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. Though despite persistent rumours, we have no Oompa Loompas up there. So room 19, it was originally the composing room, back when we were still a print school, with high Victorian ceilings, cast iron columns and factory-loaded wooden floors. These features all endure, though many are currently hidden by later dubious interventions such as false ceilings and delightfully hideous 70s brown carpeting. Though these cannot disguise a heritage that seeps from the walls or the history contained within the rolling stacks. On the shelves you'll find a smorgasbord of books, pamphlets, broadsides and archives, home to one of the world's largest and most significant collections of type specimens, numbering some 10,000 volumes. The library holds over 200 special collections and many physical objects from the history of printing and type founding, including the aforementioned presses, punches, matrices, and typecasting equipment. Every box holds some new treasure, some catalogued, some not, some objects easily identifiable and some not so much. There are the archives of such legends of the print and design world as Beatrice Ward and Harry Carter, and folios showing the lesser known. There are histories of the great type foundries plus the stories of the smaller ones. Our collections began with the private libraries of William Blades, a city printer with a passion for print history, and his collection of over 3,000 volumes included technical handbooks, manufacturers' catalogues, type founders' specimens and print ephemera. This early collection was expanded with the acquisition of the archives of Talbot Bain Reeds, an avid collector of type specimens, and the library has continued to evolve through further acquisitions and donations, becoming the preeminent and globally renowned resource it is today. In the 60s and 70s, as the days of hot metal were coming to an end, then librarian James Mosley set himself the task of rescuing many of the defunct artefacts of the period in order that a record be kept of what could so easily be lost. These included the blocks, punches and matrices of the influential Chiswick Press, the punches of the great Caslon Foundry, and type from the Oxford University Press. The library also houses original woodblocks by the likes of Robert Gibbings, artwork for Edward Johnson's celebrated London Underground typography and graphics, and scale models for Margaret Calvert and Jock Kinnear's iconic UK road signage. The library is frequented by type and graphic designers, historians, researchers, students and such uppercase folk as yourselves. It's a meeting place for kindred spirits, with whispered discussions running the gamut from Aachen to Zapfino, which can be overheard in all corners of our modest reading room. And were this not enough to fulfil the yearnings of the typographically ravenous, St Bride has too the amazing print studio that first drew me in, with examples of presses from the 18th to the 20th centuries, where we run letterpress, wood engraving and bookbinding workshops. We have a programme of tours and talks and organise bespoke sessions for organisations and universities who wish to explore specific areas of our collections and get their hands inky pulling prints on our historic presses. So in conclusion, how could you not be inspired by St Bride Library? It is a mirror to the history of print, and the history of print is the history of us all. So thank you very much.